The Bold Gold Media Group.
The following presentation is brought to you by the host of the program, who is solely responsible for its content.
And we're live from the top of West Mountain. This is Sanity Check. If you want to start your weekend off right, give us a call, 888-577-4487. Once again, that's 888-577-4487. In studio, we have Betsy Summers and...
Dave Joseph.
Dave Joseph, thank you. I am absolutely terrible with names, so if I forget your name at least 12 times during the broadcast, you'll have to forgive me.
And we also have Frank Sorick, who forgot to introduce himself.
For those of you who don't listen to Sanity Check regularly and don't know who I am, shame on you. But for the rest of you, you know, I, as usual, I'm here filling in for Lou. Well, Lou is gallivanting across the nation, doing God knows what, to God knows who.
That's true.
So, do we have Michael on the line?
We got Mike.
Good morning, Michael.
It is Michael. It is Michael, Frank. We're a little bit of a sore throat this morning, a little raspy, but I think we'll get through the day.
What are you doing down there in Texas? I hear there's torrential flooding everywhere. What's going on?
Well, you know, we've just taken the reverse role of Pennsylvania. You guys are as dry as could be, I understand, and we're just wet and building our arcs as fast as we can. So.
You know, I'm watching national news, and I'm hearing people are scattering for their lives, and we're people are flooding. We don't know what's going on down there, and I'm thinking, I wonder how Michael's taking all this.
Well, you know, Frank, it's really interesting here. Just give folks there in Pennsylvania a little bit of what the Texas terrain is like. Is, you know, in Pennsylvania it can rain, and it soaks, it rains, it soaks in, it rains, it soaks in. Here it's just like, there's nothing. There's nothing for it to soak in. It's all rock. So when it starts to rain, it really has nowhere to go other than the fact that your house, you know, so if you're in the low-lying plains, you get it pretty good. And although it's rare, they get it pretty good. Just to give folks an idea, a little Blanco River here, which is probably as big as that creek down in South Wilkes-Barre, ended up being 41 feet deep. So
Wow.
You go from a little stream that in the summer you can walk across to 41 feet. And to make it worse, Frank, to give you an idea of how many people got in trouble so fast, within 2 hours, that little river raised 23 feet in 2 hours. So, you know, because people say, how did they get stuck in that thing? Didn't they know better? When you got a stream that raises 23 feet in 2 hours, it's really tough to react to, Frank, particularly when it's in the middle of the night. So there's lots of explanations, and certainly the environments are so much different from Pennsylvania to here that there's a lot of things to be prepared for fast, Frank. So that's just a little bit of an example of why people got into trouble so fast.
So what is the forecast like going forward? Is this rain going to let up anytime soon, or where do we expect all of this to end, or when?
It's actually, they're looking not just types of rains, but they're looking right through possibly towards the end of the summer, Frank, but not as explosive as it has been. So I don't think we're going to be seeing the catastrophes that we've seen. But for central Texas, it's pretty unusual, particularly over the last 7 years since they've had a drought. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing because it looks like we're possibly breaking that drought. But in the fact that people do have to be aware of the situations. And, you know, a thunderstorm can come out of nowhere and drop. For example, last Saturday, we got anywhere from 8 to 12 inches of rain,
And
all at one time.
As we know, this is likely the result of global warming, right?
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, it's all over the place.
The polar ice caps have melted, and they've just fallen on Texas.
The only thing I don't get there, Frank, is that Al Gore never seems to be in the middle of that thing. I don't know how he can predict these things, but he seems to be dry and cool.
I mean, this is a guy who invented the internet, so he pretty much knows everything. And we all know that you can't post anything on the internet that isn't true. I mean, we've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. So he must be actually furious about the new controls over the internet, Frank. So I guess maybe that's why he's staying quiet right now.
Those of you listening to Sanity Check, I forgot to issue the warning. Please don't listen to a word we say. Do your own research and don't believe us.
Well, I ended up with waterfront property on South Wells Street the other day when we had a thunderstorm because, they have never cleaned the storm drains.
You know, as I was as I was driving to your house this morning, Betsy, I was passing Shield Supermarket there in South Wilkes-Barre, and I'm looking at the storm drains because of the lake that Horton Street and Hanover Street have become as a result of the same thing. And I'm thinking these storm drains still are not clean. Even after the torrential rains and after everybody was boating and fishing right in the streets, and they're still not cleaned out. I mean, it looks like someone took a barrel of hay and just stuffed it right in the storm drains. It's just growing right up out of there now.
Now, when I ran for mayor of Wilkes-Barre, I had a great idea. As we were walking around, I thought, why don't we plant stuff in the storm drains? Because all around the square, I mean, they were filled to the top with dirt. And I thought we could just scatter like marijuana seeds.
Sure you could.
So that's what's growing up out of there. Thanks.
So, and that way, people would come and clean the storm drains. But
it's not going to.
Never
They're just
worked.
going to pick off the buds and move along.
I know.
Well, the problem is, Betsy, you don't live in the right part of Wilkes-Barre. See, when you live in certain parts of Wilkes-Barre, like Barney Farms, it looks like something out of Hollywood. It's perfect. So, I'm trying to figure out, Betsy, why certain people get certain treatments in the city and others don't. Perhaps, Frank, you have an explanation for that. I myself don't understand it. It's the haves and the have-nots. Am I right?
Well, technically, you are right. And I have heard certain city officials say, well, those folks pay more in taxes than you do. And so, yeah, I've actually heard that at a city council meeting, and that's a ridiculous answer because all citizens, regardless of the dollar amount, the worth of their house, whatever, all citizens deserve the same treatment. And if you're going to clean the storm drains, if we're going to charge the people over $250,000 annually for street sweeping and projects like that, make sure we're actually sweeping the streets. One lady said to me at council meeting, just this week, that our new street sweeper has the smallest base on it, where it actually picks up the garbage. It has the smallest base of any street sweeper that you can purchase. So we buy this new $1 million street sweeper, and it still can't do the job. So,
And Frank, I don't understand, because growing up in South Wilkes-Barre, right on Oak Street as a boy, I can remember, every morning, just as you're trying to get a few minutes of sleep, that dang thing will go down the street. And the city size of Wilkes-Barre really hasn't changed much, and yet the streets were beautiful.
7 square miles.
It was, you never had those issues. Yes, if you had a torrential storm, the drains couldn't handle it. They would back up, but they'd be gone within hours. What has changed? What all of a sudden is
experienced leadership? That's what we have now. I mean,
Right.
That's what's changed. The leadership from those who care, that those that don't. I mean, that's it. So if you want, I mean, I don't even know what to say as far as this leadership just has not gotten it done. They've just completely ignored the problems and allowed this problem to continually get worse, to the point where now Betsy's turning every storm drain in Wilkes-Barre into her personal flower garden.
Well, I went out, I brought a rake, and I was trying to rake the leaves off the top of the grate because I thought the street debris was causing the issue and not the non-cleaning of the drain. Of course, it was packed with mud probably for a mile. And I asked the DPW workers, I said, what is going on? He said, hey, look, they have contracted with somebody to clean all the drains. He said, but they're doing it sporadically. And he said, they're not, he goes, we don't understand. I mean, the people who actually do the work in the city, they're like, we have no idea what their procedure is, because they'll do this street, they'll do that street. I said, they're doing the streets where the friends and cronies of council and the mayor all live, and everybody else goes by the wayside. And he started laughing. So I think I might have hit the nail on the head.
Well, and here's a really tough question, Betsy. There is a point too, and I mentioned as a kid, having the street cleaners come through, doing a great job. But there was also a community involvement where, if they saw it, you went and you the citizens picked up the drains if they had to, if there was an issue. So, is part of this a citizenship issue now, where people just don't care because of the apathy of the leadership?
The people
I don't
are
know
gone.
that. I don't live in Wilkes-Barre anymore.
Well, neither does anyone else. I mean, that's the problem. When you lived in Wilkes-Barre, when you grew up in Wilkes-Barre, every home was occupied. Today, they're empty. And the city's ripping them down as fast as they can because their buddies need contracts.
And the one time I go out and I shovel the debris off the street because the street cleaner never comes, and I put it into the yard waste buckets. I pick the garbage out, and then I've had the people come and go to dump the yard waste bucket, and they wouldn't do it. And I said, but he said, oh, this is a bucket filled with dirt, and we don't take dirt. I said, but it's the dirt from the street. What am I supposed to do with this stuff?
Put it back.
Yeah. So, you can't win.
Huh. Wow. So there's a yes and a no to everything, apparently, because if you put it back there, then you'll probably be fined for leaving dirt on it.
That's right.
All right. Let me ask this. Was there a Hawkeye camera that saw you take the dirt out, that might see you put it back so you could at least have...
Oh, I don't know. There might be one left in the city that works.
Oh, good God. We're doomed. Well,
Frank, as if I understand correctly, you're running for mayor.
I am. I absolutely
am. You are. And what are some of the things that you feel are the priority things to get on immediately in Wilkes-Barre? Any thoughts of that? Have you gotten that far in the campaign, or is it sort of like throw my arms up and oh my gosh, which way do they start?
Well, I mean, if you try to tackle all of the problems at once, it's overwhelming. We absolutely must solve the crime problem. I mean, people are running for their lives and they're being shot to death in the city. It truly has become unbelievable what has happened to Wilkes-Barre, and everybody is saying the same thing. We have to solve the crime problem, and that's first and foremost. But how do you do that? And I'm a firm believer that you absolutely must have someone at the top that's going to want to solve these problems, because it seems like this administration that's been running Wilkes-Barre for the past 12 years just doesn't care, is either looking the other way or making Wilkes-Barre more welcoming to this type of element. And we can't have that. You have to treat every crime as a problem and tackle them all.
Well, it's interesting, Frank, because, again, I'm going to go back to my youth where, one of the streets in South Wilkes-Barre, which was considered a great place to live, I believe actually Mayor Layton's mom or grandma used to live on that street. It would have been intolerable for his family to live under such conditions of prostitution, shots going off in the middle of the night, wondering whether your home's going to be broken into when you get home, whether you come home too late at night, whether it's safe or not. Even to walk down to the corner store, whether it's safe or not. It's so interesting when I see that, the leadership, in this case, Mayor Layton, has allowed that to happen when he had family members living there, several decades ago in peace. And it certainly has changed quick, hasn't it, Frank?
It absolutely has. And it comes down to someone, it simply is someone who just doesn't care. There's no other explanation. It's certainly not incompetence. I mean, this guy's been in the role for 12 years. He knows exactly what needs to be done and is just not doing it. There's no other explanation than you just don't care. And that type of leadership needs to change. And this is part of the issues that, as I see it, we need to have a chief of police that truly wants to solve these problems and is going to empower his police force to do it. My idea of a chief of police is somebody that embodies not only strength, but true commitment to the city of Wilkes-Barre, and someone who truly strives to make the city a better place. Someone who understands what it means to protect and serve and will ensure that that type of quality work trickles down to the officers on the streets. And unless you have someone like that, I don't believe it's going to change.
And of course, you need a mayor that's going to back up that chief of police.
Exactly.
When I see what's going on in Baltimore, Frank, it's sort of the same thing in a larger scale. Where who's in charge? What are the rules? What are we supposed to do? There's so many different ways to attack this thing, but I think at the end of the day, we need to set the rules and really enforce those rules, no matter where we are, whether we're in the best most expensive, affluent neighborhoods or whether we're in the poorest neighborhoods, right? That's really, really the rules that have to be set and enforced. At least that's my opinion.
You're absolutely right, Michael. And we also have to look to allowing our police chief to do what needs to be done. I mean, you can't just say, okay, well, we have this great police chief who's going to train the officers in what needs to be done, but then we're going to tie his or her hands and say, okay, well, you know what, we don't want this for whatever reason. That can't happen either. And, you know, everybody looks to our former chief of police and say he was an absolute do-nothing. But prior to him being chief of police, he was an exceptional officer. So you have to wonder, were his hands tied? And if so, why?
That is, it's absolutely, you know, Frank, and there's so many different answers and questions to this. And, you know, all of a sudden you're enforcing the laws, and now maybe there's a racial component thrown in there. Now, you know, so it is such a tough and daunting job. So I give you or anyone who's running for mayor, you know, so much credit, because it is not going to be an easy job to take 12 years of doing nothing and then expectations of the citizenship that they want to fix today.
Well,
so,
I can't wait, Mike.
It's going to be a good message.
That if Frank has to get in, because he is the only candidate running who I believe would open all the closet doors in City Hall.
Let those skeletons out.
Boy, I'll tell you, I think anybody else who would end up as mayor would try to hide that type of thing. And just because it's, bad publicity. But that's the only way we're going to find out exactly what went on over the last 50 years.
Absolutely.
And to put us in the position. Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to vote for Frank. Absolutely.
Frank's going to air the dirty laundry.
Fess up now, Frank. She's going to be the police chief, isn't she?
No, thank you.
Get your pitchfork and shotgun ready, Betsy. No.
Hey, I am just glad that I don't have to run for magistrate. I am so happy. Yeah.
You're going to be busy.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have Lou joining us.
All right.
4.3 FM, The Talker.
So listen to a word I say. The screams all sound the same.
Don't listen. You're listening to Sanity Check. If you want to give us a call, it's 888-577-4487. Lou, are you with us?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good.
What's up?
It's really early morning there, isn't it, Lou?
It is, Michael, and but you guys are sounding great. And as you said, Michael, originally we were planning on stopping to see you, but because of the weather and because of what you guys are going through down there, we had to make some adjustments.
Good news.
Did make it down into New Mexico. And spent the night. I stayed overnight with Gary Johnson at his home in Tahoe. And Betsy, driving back through after we left there, you hit Albuquerque, and you guys were talking a little bit about the landscape, and drove right past Zuni. And if I remember correctly, Betsy, you were out in Zuni, New Mexico, doing some great work onst again.
I was able to go out this year. I went for 10 days. And helped Native American Veterinary Services, and a group of veterinarians and technicians go out and spay and neuter. I think they got 130 dogs and cats spayed and neutered. They do other medical work, and I don't even know how many they vaccinated. I got to go out and worm sheep. I did 300 sheep, so that was exciting. And you get to go out to the sheep camps. And so you see parts of the reservation that white men never see. So it was really cool. And I did some building. We built 2 exam rooms, a new addition onto our clinic out there.
Well, I think it's a testament to you and what you've done, too, also, Betsy, is you've been doing this for quite some time and doing this on your own time and helping folks. But we talked a little briefly, and Mike also. You know, you can't help but think when you're driving across. I certainly did, and I mentioned this to you yesterday too, Betsy. Is you're watching them trains go across the the plains there, and pulling 200 cars or so, and flat, not too many trees, if any trees at all, and the red cliff backgrounds, and it's a border state, and all the stuff that's going on, and certainly we talking with Gary Johnson, talking about what's going on with the whole immigration issue, and he being a border state governor. It was interesting, but we'll have to, you guys will have to wait till I come back, and I'll fill you in on that conversation and his plans for his presidential run, and all kinds of good stuff. But tonight or today, being in Las Vegas, it's an opportunity to be around many like people like ourselves, and we have a busy day. Both me and Mr. X are here, and we're giving presentations on our newspaper. We have workshops, and even the individuals that are here. You know, you keep hearing the same thing about the media, folks not being able to get their message into the media. Yesterday, Larry Elder, a radio host that is out of Los Angeles, he has a 3-hour show Monday through Friday in Los Angeles, and many of the same things you keep hearing about how things are not being put into the media and how we're not getting our news the way it should be. So we're looking forward to having a busy day here today.
Well, I had heard that.
I mean, what are the odds, Lou, that they don't throw you out now that you're in Vegas?
Well, we're on a mission, Michael. So one of the things is this is strictly business. I know a lot of folks say, "Oh, you're in Vegas." I couldn't even really tell you what the temperature is outside because since we've been here, it's been nose to the grindstone. Betsy, I know you guys. And Frank and you too, Michael. You go sometimes to these conventions, and it's a lot of work. But I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Be with Wayne Allen Root also again, as you guys know. We'll be going out to dinner and talking business. So it's all good stuff. All good stuff.
I cannot imagine, Lou, that they would want the Independent Gazette anywhere near Vegas. I mean, after all, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And if you get down there with the Independent Gazette, that's not going to be true anymore.
Well, that's a good possibility here because, once again, there's been an awful lot of people. It's kind of a little overwhelmed from the registration, a lot more folks from Arizona. I had breakfast with individuals from Arizona yesterday and California and Nevada. But from really all over the country. I haven't met anybody else from Pennsylvania. A lot of people from Pennsylvania, not living there anymore. But
go figure. Our state's population is declining once again. I wonder why. Could it have anything to do with rising property taxes?
Well, everything that you guys were talking about is Wilkes-Barre. Certainly, I had listened to what you guys were talking about at the beginning. I couldn't help but thinking about the Wild West. Here, Michael, we're out in the Wild West, but the real action is happening on the streets of Wilkes-Barre, unfortunately.
Wilkes-Barre is a lot like the Wild West was. It just Wilkes-Barre is not as safe as the Wild West. That's all.
It's really unbelievable. So listen, you guys have a full house there today, and I just wanted to call in. You sound great, and I figured I'd start my weekend off right by calling in this time. So that's just what I did, and we'll look forward to reporting back to you guys and talking about how we're going to grow this Independent Gazette, Michael, and the rest of the crew there across the country, because it's so. However we do it, we're going to try to figure out a way because it's vital to get the information out to folks. I see what Fox News is doing to Rand Paul. He's not even being included in the polling. Now there's a surprise.
Oh, geez.
That's because he is the only candidate above 10%. So if they were to put those numbers out there, it would it would let Republicans know that he's the guy that could actually win in states like Pennsylvania, in the states that matter. I mean, traditionally, any Republican who takes the state of Pennsylvania is guaranteed the White House. I mean, no Democrat has ever won the White House without Pennsylvania, as no Republican has ever won the White House without Ohio. These are critical states.
Frank,
it's funny, Lou, when you bring that up, Lou. They've already started the attacks amongst his competitors, and they're using the same tactics that Fox News is using. he doesn't understand. He's incompetent. He doesn't understand what ISIS is. And it's like,
he's logical. He's a critical thinker. We can't have someone like that in the White House.
Well, Frank, and those are great points because the traditional logic has got us here. Why do you want me to believe that your logic is going to get us out of it? We need some fresh thinking, and that's what Rand Paul brings to the table.
I'll tell you that Santorum statement was unbelievable.
Which one?
It's to me, it's inconceivable. Either he has an agenda or he's an idiot. I just can't believe it. I mean, I'm a woman who lives in Wilkes-Barre, and I understand ISIS. Compared to what he was saying, I mean, Rand Paul hit the nail right on the head. Our foreign policy has been horrendous for 40-plus years, which has created the issues we have, and this moron can't see that?
Well, I think the problem is that you... Go ahead, Lou.
And I'll get off, Michael, too. But I think even more telling, regardless of what one thinks of either Santorum or Rand Paul or any other candidates, the fact that he's not included in the polls is just. I mean, they've already started their media blackout, and that's why what we're doing and why we're trying to do what we're doing. And I'm talking about to our whole crew. I mean, everybody that just got up early this morning, not only even listening to the show, but you guys there, Michael, you calling in, and Frank and Betsy and John D. Liberto, and why we're doing the stuff that we're doing. And it's just so important that we, as best as we can continue to point out what the media is doing and how they're trying to deceive the public. The fact that he is not included in that poll, I think there were 10 people in that poll. You guys have it probably in front of you there. But the fact that Rand Paul was not even considered to be put into the poll. Same thing happened with Gary Johnson last time around. Same thing with Ron Paul. So on all that note, guys, I'm going to get myself ready here. I'm up. You got my blood pressure up. I'm ready to,
That's our job.
All right.
And thanks for filling in, guys. And we'll be calling back in. I'm off to Montana after this, and then back to Scranton, and looking forward to rolling up the sleeves and doing what we need to do to expand the Gazette. So
safe travels.
Talk to you guys next. Thanks, guys. I'll be listening on the Bold Gold Media app right now. So
all right.
You guys have a good rest of the show, guys.
All right, Lou. We'll see you when you get back.
You betcha. Bye-bye.
All right.
Betsy, you had mentioned, Betsy, that Santorum was either an idiot or somebody with an agenda.
Yeah.
And I suggest that he's an idiot with an agenda.
Oh, dear. And on that note, we're going to go to break. When we come back, Ben will be joining us to talk about property taxes.
With Tea Party Mike, Libertarian Lou, Saturday mornings, 94.3 FM The Talker.
Hey, brother, there's an endless road to rediscover. Hey, sister, know the water's sweet, but blood is thicker.
Who picks this music? Oh, good God, you're listening to Sanity Check. 888-577-4487. If you want to tell them to stop playing this music, that would be great.
I'm in Texas. I have nothing to do with it, Frank.
You might be lying. Oh, God help us all. I'm from Wilkes-Barre. I don't believe. Like the Chamber of Commerce, we no longer believe we're retiring that award. Please tell me we have
I've never heard of before, Frank. They must be getting something out of the drains in Wilkes-Barre and writing songs. That's all I have to say.
Ben, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Thank you so much for holding.
Oh, thanks for taking my call, and thanks for having the program every week. I wish it was a couple hours longer and on every day.
As
I
do
have other things to do, but it would be fun to be able to discuss these things openly without, being in fear of being retaliated on for something. But I'm a landlord, not in the city of Wilkes-Barre, but across the river in Plymouth.
Okay.
But I do have some friends that are landlords in Wilkes-Barre and own multiple properties. And getting back to what you were talking about earlier about the crime problem, if you don't solve the drug problem, you don't solve the crime problem. And that's the basis for probably 75% of the crime in the city, as well as other cities. It's not just Wilkes-Barre, is the drug usage itself. I know that the pushers and the people that are making the methamphetamines and selling the marijuana and so forth are the criminal part of that. But the users are the reason they're there. If it wasn't for the users, the criminals wouldn't be there to sell them the stuff that they require to get by each day. But the problem you're going to run into now, after I listened to this results of the meeting that took place on Thursday night, you're going to build this $100 million monstrosity of a school in the city of Wilkes-Barre. What that's going to do is it's going to jack up property taxes on these landlords to the point where these people now can't pay $500, $450 a month rent for these properties. How in the world are they going to pay $600, $650 a month? And it's going to get to where the landlords are going to get tired of chasing people for rent. They're not going to buy these properties. They're going to let them go. So what happens to the city then if you don't have any tax base at all? Because half the kids that are going to this school, their parents aren't paying taxes. They're getting Section 8 housing, or they're living in government housing the way it is. Who's going to pay for this school? Where's it going to come from? And I don't think anybody's discussing this.
I have to disagree with you, Ben. Governor Wolf just brought this up at a town hall meeting in the Poconos, where he stated we do have a choice. The choice is between educating our children or not, but it comes at a cost to the taxpayers and possibly that of losing your home. He was very cavalier when he said that. It's almost to the point, do we want to educate our children or do we want to be homeless? And he's pitting homeowners against their own children, which is absolutely ridiculous. And Governor Wolf needs to wake up and smell the coffee here. We have to do something. There has to be a solution to where we can educate our children and not bankrupt their parents in the process.
Well, he also has to realize that you are not going to build a substantial value in a city by bringing in nothing but warehousing jobs to people. $8, $9, $10 an hour jobs. You need substantial jobs that make $50,000, $45,000, $50,000 a year, where people can afford to put homes in and work on homes and build them up to where they're worth paying the property taxes that you're going to have. Everything is cyclical. I'm sorry,
right.
Cyclical. It all comes around. Everything works together in this country to make things work. And if you have one of those cogs out of the wheel broken, then the rest is going to wind up broken. And that's where we're at. We're in this vicious circle right now of doing nothing for people and doing everything for the people at the top.
I totally agree with you, Ben. And
Ben, it's really interesting. In the state of Pennsylvania, as I know you know, how do you create those jobs when we have one of the highest, if not highest, corporate taxes in the nation? How do you do
Absolutely.
that? And this is the leadership that we're dealing with here, both Republicans and Democrats.
It's hard to understand how you can throw out these KOZ zones for little businesses that are going to hire 1 and 2 people and not make them pay property tax for 10 years. But you can't lower the corporate tax to bring in the real industry that brings in the real jobs that builds real living wages for people.
Yeah,
What's the difference?
And Ben, it's very interesting because it's at all levels. I remember running for Luzerne County Council, and I threw this idea at them. I said, lower the taxes. Bring business into the county. You won't have to worry about raising taxes. You won't worry about having to cutting jobs. You'll have enough revenue based on the fact that you'll have more jobs. And Ben, I had to look at you. I saw a bunch of starry-eyed people looking at me like, that's a concept. How could that possibly work?
Well, didn't this work?
And it was.
Didn't this work when President Bush tried this and he lowered a lot of the taxes? We actually saw increased revenues.
Yes.
Well, yeah, they know that. They know even with capital gains, they know that if you lower the capital gains taxes, you actually have an increase in revenue to the government. When you raise capital gains taxes, the revenue comes down. I mean, it's so obvious, it's unbelievable, and this goes all the way back to President Kennedy realized this and did the same thing.
It does, Ben, but I think there's a whole new culture in our leadership today from all levels, that if we create the jobs, then we can no longer control the people. And in my heart, I believe that this is part of the conspiracy that's going on to the American public, is that, if you have a good job, then we can no longer supply the things that you need. And I think we have to take a real serious look at that. And I know, I don't know, it could sound like sort of like a libertarian point of view, but I believe it is. I believe people are looking at this and saying, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's not Libertarian, it's what our nation was supposed to be and what the opportunities were supposed to be that are being ripped out of our hands every day, Frank.
I think if our Senate and the Congress would get together and stop for a minute and say, how do we bring back the manufacturing jobs that we lost through NAFTA and through all this nonsense that went on through the 90s and the first 10 years of this century, and say, look, let's get these CEOs and these people together and these board of directors, and let's sit down with them and say, what do we have to do to bring you back to this country to supply the jobs for our own people who are the ones who buy the products from you anyhow? And you know what? Rather than finding out why some college is doing a test to find out how fast ketchup flows out of a bottle, start spending that money wisely with the corporations that create the jobs. I mean, I'm not a superstar, as far as I'm not a Harvard graduate or anything. If I can figure this out, why can't these people figure it out? And the only reason I can come up with is they don't want to.
It's time better spent on ketchup, I guess.
Yeah, and isn't that amazing? I mean, I read that article where we actually paid a college a grant to find out which ketchup flowed the fastest. Are you kidding me?
I want the ketchup that flows the slowest. I mean,
I don't
isn't
want to
that
sit there with a knife digging it out of the bottle.
Hasn't Heinz told us all along it's worth waiting for? I mean, we know this. We didn't need a study to tell us if ketchup comes out slower, it's better.
But you guys understand what I mean, right? Let's spend this money. Even if you are supporting these corporations, let's get them back here for a while. Whatever it takes to lure them back, get them back here. Because these $7 and $8 and $9 an hour jobs, even their magical $15 an hour thing, isn't going to cut it today.
No,
it's not going to do it. Automobiles are $40,000.
Right.
Well, you're not doing that on $15 an hour.
I couldn't agree more. And again, I mean, we're seeing our property values plummet, and at the same time, we're seeing our property taxes skyrocket. Something is wrong here.
Absolutely.
And until we solve the real problems, we're never going to solve the crime problem. I mean, everything else is a result of these skyrocketing taxes. That has to end.
It's all linked together. Everything works together for good when it works.
That's right.
It really does. And here in Texas, property taxes are a huge issue, too. I'm here 1 year, and they decided that my house went up 8%.
See? Well,
how does it go?
Personally, I don't know how you live in Texas. I've been to Texas 4 times in my life and spent a week there or a little over a week each time, and I think it's like living in an oven.
Well, it's a wet oven today.
That's because we're always trying to keep the heat on the politicians. And that's how that works. Yeah,
you get your wake-up call in the morning at the hotel, and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, and a little lady on the phone says to you, "Good morning, it's 85 degrees and 80% humidity."
I can't imagine a better place.
Ben, it was a pleasure talking to you. I thank you very much for calling in.
Thanks for your time, guys, and again, thanks for the show.
Have a great one.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we're going to talk to Dave now. He's going to bring us up to speed on Common Core. For those of you who don't know what Common Core is, Dave's going to fill us in here.
Oh boy, where do I start? There's so much information here.
Asking for another hour.
Yes, another 2 hours. Basically, it's unfortunately there's a lot of disinformation that's out there, and it basically started off in 2009. And what it is a national school curriculum. They deemed it an initiative, standards, what have you, that was put together by the National Governors Association and an organization called Achieve. And it was centered around mathematics and literature, but it's actually expanded from there at this point. And what initially propelled it was President Obama's Raise to the Top initiative that he put together with grants that kind of went somewhere around $75 million in federal assistance towards education, plus a reprieve from the No Child Left Behind act or bill, or however it was. And basically from that point on, that's where the states picked it up. And initially, 46 states agreed to adopt the standards without actually even seeing them, having no clue.
This was as volunteers. They weren't forced into this by any legislation. They volunteered. We're going to do this.
Well, if you call the volunteers saying that we're going to take you out of the crippling program like No Child Left Behind and then dangle $75 million over your head, if you call that voluntary, but...
All right, so we were bribed into it, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that would be a proper word. I won't use the word, but if you want to call it...
I'm from Wilkes-Barre. I use that word. It's a bribe.
It sounds like that. And though they're claiming that it is something that is all state-based and the states are making the decisions, an organization that considers itself the National Governors Association, where they claim all these governors got together with this organization, most of that does not seem to hold any water, and most of it seems to be just strictly with this organization. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't imagine all of our states actually communicating to get one thing done to begin with, but besides that fact...
You're telling me there's lies and bribes involved and Mayor Layton wasn't there? I'm finding this very hard to believe.
Well, this is a national curriculum, although that's not what they say. The states came up with it, so technically you have a good point.
Now, isn't this... I've seen some of the questions on these tests, and supposedly they are supposed to teach reasoning skills. And some of the issues that I've heard is that teachers have to teach for the test.
Right.
So that they actually don't get to teach real stuff that kids need to learn because they need to have these kids pass the test, right? Is this...
Right. I mean, and that basically goes back to the fact that even though they're trying to claim that it is state-led and the states are making a decision, it's all based off of a national curriculum, which they even specifically said, even though they, like I said, indicated that it was state-led, in their own report, they specifically, in quote, said, "We anticipate that given limited resources that most districts have for curriculum improvements, the overwhelming majority of districts will rely on a portal to bring instructional program in with the new standards." So basically, even though they're telling you that the states are coming up with all this, they're discussing this, there's little school board meetings and everything, they're basically saying, yeah, well, it's probably not going to work in the time frame that we want it to, so we have a portal with the curriculum, with the national curriculum that we want you to use, and that's what you're supposed to use and base everything off of.
Well, it's really interesting. Still having children in school here in Texas, one of the concerns I have is, you're right, they are teaching for a test, but during the regular school curriculum, there's a thing here, at least in this Blanco school district, that if you fail a test, you get a do-over. And if you pass it, then you get that passing grade. And I'm thinking, why are they teaching our children that there's second chances and everything? Because in life, there isn't second chances and everything. And it is so difficult to fail in grade and have to repeat that even Rick Santorum can do it. That's how easy it is to get through.
On that note, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll discuss this a little further.
4.3 FM, The Talker.
Just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home.
And this is your home. This is Sanity Check on 94.3 FM, The Talker. If you want to give us a call, we're talking about Common Core. The number is 888-577-4487. And an interesting point out of New Jersey on Common Core. Governor Christie recently, 2 days ago, kicked Common Core out, calling it illogical. It is completely illogical. Christie said on Common Core, it simply doesn't work. So, with that in mind, I have to wonder why Governor Christie is taking such a hard stance on this. And whether you agree with Governor Christie or you're like me and you just think the guy's an idiot because he's a Dallas Cowboys fan, hey, it's okay. So that being said, I have to wonder why the biggest idiot in New Jersey is thinking this is bad.
Right. I mean, that's a good point. And actually, it's surprising because most of the country is actually still has it adopted. Pennsylvania has it adopted. The only states that actually didn't initially jump on board with it were Virginia and Texas, which obviously, if anyone wants to go down the road of Mr., what two departments am I going to eliminate? I forgot. He thought it was a bad idea, and now Christie thinks it's a bad idea. But that's...
Well, but this is a state, New Jersey has tried and failed and said
Right.
it doesn't work.
Right.
So, I mean, they at least have the experience of saying, hey, been there, done that. It just isn't working. It's completely illogical, and it simply doesn't work, is what the governor said. And, I mean, for any of the states who haven't tried it to say that, you know, they could say, well, we looked at the plan, we don't believe it will work. But New Jersey's taken the other side of this, and they've implemented it. They've tried it. They said, doesn't work. Let's get rid of it.
Right. And I mean, like, for example, I had actually pulled off a little example of a mathematics, just a basic equation that you would normally see, and you would look at it and say, oh, wow, you know, that's pretty simple. Just a simple 32 minus 12 is 20. That seems pretty simple enough. Anybody could do that. A Common Core version of it would ask you, okay, what's 32 minus 12? Same thing. Their solution sheet that they would give the teachers and give the kids and say, all right, well, you need to figure out what's 12 plus 3 equals 15, then 15 plus 5 equals 20, then 20 plus 10 equals 30, then 30 plus 2 equals 32, and then there's a big circle around 3, 5, 10, and 2, and then somehow it becomes 20. I don't know about anybody else, but I understand that the Common Core standards or curriculum were supposed to be rigorous, but it seems like if you're going to take something simplistic like that and make it complicated, and that's your example of rigorous, then that kind of makes a lot of sense what Christie has to say.
I agree with Governor Christie for the first time ever. I agree with him. And understanding that math problem, I've been to enough Wilkes-Barre City Council meetings where I've listened to our mayor utter this kind of nonsense about our budget and tell me that although the city has gone under his reign from $59 million in debt to almost $130 million in debt, we're still not broke because we have a good credit rating. So I think he might be using that fuzzy math that you're using over there and thinking that because we still have a good credit rating, you know, it's okay because we could still borrow more. So, you know, it's like if you have a $100,000 home and a $200,000 mortgage on it and your Visa card is maxed out, but your Discover card doesn't have anything on it yet, you're not exactly broke because you could still discover the possibilities. And I think that's where the mayor's going with that. So I'm just thinking that he's probably adopted that Common Core math. And the rest of us are still on what Governor Christie is out there teaching, you know, basic math.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Betsy.
These kids who are being homeschooled, do they have to take these tests also? Are the parents having to teach to this?
That's a very good question. Actually, the standards do require not, you know, it's not an option. They're not exempt. They require homeschooling, private, and charter schools to adopt this standard. So it doesn't, you know, most people said, oh, well, if it's something that the government is involved with, then it must be public school. But no, if you read between the
anything
fine
that
lines,
receives the funding. And my children are Agora students. I've pulled them out of the brick and mortar schools in the Wilkes-Barre area simply because it's, you know, not only the crime problem that's going on there, but because I didn't feel they were getting a quality education. I moved them to Agora. My son graduated almost with honors a year ahead of time. He would have had to go an extra year at Wilkes-Barre area, graduated a year early. My daughter, who was miserably failing in brick and mortar schools and is now excelling at Agora and learning 10 times the amount of information that they would have in public school. My oldest daughter, who graduated from public school at Wilkes-Barre area, she didn't learn half of what they learned at Agora. So it's far different, and they're learning a lot more, but they absolutely do have to adopt this program. So,
oh yeah, it's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's like, you know, it's my kids again when they were going to the Dallas school district. That's Dallas, Pennsylvania. When they were through the grade school, they were to learn this. I don't know, this Chicago math, they called it, where you would add from left to right. It made no sense to me at all and almost impossible for me to teach them. But when they got into the middle school, they went back to traditional math. And so my question was, how much are you getting paid as a school district to put this information to our kids at a very, very vulnerable age to our grade schools, and then suddenly just change gears? It didn't make sense to me. And what does that do to our kids' ability to think? Now they're back to doing traditional math. It seemed like a big waste of money to me.
But that seems to be government's agenda, is to be a big waste of money. I mean, I don't know any other way to put that. But anything that we have seen, and any time the government seems to get involved in something, it seems to get worse. I mean, am I wrong in this thinking? I mean, anyone want to correct me here?
No, I would definitely agree. I mean, I remember when I was in school, there we'd be in the middle of math or something like that, and the teacher would be going over the problems, and they would come up to the solution, and I would say, oh, teacher, I raised my hand, I was polite, and I said, I actually did it this way, and I said I came up to the same answer, and I still remember being told, well, this is the way we teach it. This is the way you should, this is the way you have to do it.
I remember that as well.
And pretty much what Common Core does is basically take that idea and say, well, we're actually not only going to enforce the original teacher's idea, we're going to give a whole new idea that's more complicated, but now you are forced to do it. You have to do it. There isn't an option anymore.
You have to follow their steps, where it used to be the correct answer was good enough.
Right.
And it's not anymore.
No.
Well, and the interesting thing is, where I know this is a rogue idea, is that if you're able to get a teacher away from the environment and say, what do you think about this? Well, don't say anything that I said this, but it's stupid.
The unions would have their heads.
They do. So they have a fear of not being able to speak up of what's best for our children. That's a real scary situation for me.
My solution to this, Michael, is real simple. Government's first and only job, as far as I'm concerned, protection of its citizens. Let's let the teachers do their job and educate the youth. That's it. Get out of there. Let the teachers do what they do best. They know how to do this. They're teachers. They got into this profession. I don't think there was a teacher in the world who got into this thinking, gee, I'd love to be a government bureaucrat. They got into this because they have a passion for educating youth.
Well, in fact, that's true. And the thing of it is, what concerns me as we have our new teachers moving up, great folks, really motivated to help our children, have maybe been taught the same standards. And maybe they don't even know how to teach anymore. And that's the thing that has me concerned, too. Where is our culture going in real education? It's certainly not being progressive and dealing, and certainly not ahead of the rest of the world in our ability to teach our children. Right?
You're absolutely right. It's almost as if government's agenda here is dumbing down America, and maybe that's to keep us more compliant. I have no idea, but we're coming down to the wire here, and as we always say, this is the fastest hour in radio. So I hope we did our job. I hope we educated everybody on Common Core a little bit more than what we knew before. I know certainly I have, but any final words from anybody?
Just keep up the fight, guys, and folks like Lou making the commitment to go out and try to make people aware of what we're doing in Wilkes-Barre with the paper. Just keep up and God bless all.
Absolutely. Now more than ever, we need the Independent Gazette, because as our school systems are having their hands tied in everything, we need to have information somewhere. So.
Absolutely. And it's, and somehow we made this show without X.
Well, I heard X was kidnapped, but we'll see him next week.